New World. An unnamed island. The moonlight at night shed lightly on the sea, and with the breeze blowing, the waves hit the reef, splashing a few feet of crystal water, and then falling back into the sea like raindrops. On the coast, more than 43 masted sailing ships docked aside. One of them was several times larger than the others, like a whale. This ship is called the Moby Dick. It is a pirate ship controlled by Whitebeard, one of the New World 4 emperors. A room on the Moby Dick. A burly man with a black hat and a crescent-shaped white beard is sitting on the bed. His eyes are extremely deep. He is Whitebeard, who is known as the strongest man in the world. But at this time, Whitebeard had already changed a soul from the earth. Blackbeard gained the power of dark fruit. Ace was arrested. Marine has announced that Ace will be executed soon. Whitebeard said in a low voice, and the predecessor has summoned all the power of the Whitebeard pirate group, ready to go to Marineford to rescue Ace. In other words, what I have to face next is the war on top. Moreover, there are only 6 days left before the outbreak of the war. Speaking of this, the room fell silent. The 6-day period was short, too short to make any plans. But he knew that if he didn't take action and plunged into Marineford like the original, the end result would be death in battle. And the Whitebeard pirates will be like in the original book, fall apart. But how to change his fate, he was a little undecided. Because Marine is too strong. Sangoku of Buddha, Garp of Heroes, Admiral of 3, 7 Warlords of the Sea. In addition to these top masters, there are also a large number of Vice Admiral, Rear Admiral, plus 100,000 elite Marines. These masters gathered at Marineford, waiting for him to cast himself in the net. Don't look at the Whitebeard pirates fighting with Marine in the original work, even almost destroying Marineford. But it can't change a fact. That is, in the case of 7 Warlords of the Sea playing soy sauce, Aokiji, Kizaru, Garp, and Sangoku, they still failed miserably. That's right. It's a fiasco. Whitebeard himself died in battle, Ace was killed, Joz broke his arm, and the pirates suffered heavy casualties and fell apart ever since. What about Marine? Except for the death of some low-end combat powers, none of the high-end combat powers were a problem. Ren was the strongest force on the sea. Destroy a 4 Emperors regiment with minimal casualties. From this we can know how terrible Marine's power is. If he is the same as the original, he will go to Marineford without any preparation. Even if you know the plot, you will definitely die. I have inherited everything from Whitebeard and will never sit back and watch this happen again. Whitebeard creaked his fist. He knows how miserable the Whitebeard pirates was after the death of Whitebeard in the original book. The power was divided by many parties, and the captain of his men was hunted down all over the world by Whitebeard, and the huge group of pirates fell apart. Now that he has become Whitebeard, he will not let the tragedy repeat itself. And this card, maybe it can change my destiny. Open the palm. A card that only he can see appears in the palm. While he was reborn as Whitebeard, he also bound a supercard system. As long as you defeat the enemy in battle, you can get cards with different effects. And this card in hand is the novice gift package given to the system for the first time binding. Named Life is Resurrected. Life Recovery. This card contains strong vitality, which can restore the human body's hidden injuries and illnesses, and make people reborn. In the original book, the main reason why Whitebeard died in the battle, besides being besieged, was illness and age. When it came to the top of the war, Whitebeard played 50% or 60% of his strength when he died. With this card, this body can be restored to its peak state. Whitebeard smashed the card fiercely. A powerful vitality spread throughout the body, the originally failing organs regained a new life, the body's illness slowly dissipated, and the powerful force rushed to the limbs. It seems that a mountain can be shattered with just one fist. In addition to his body, Haki, who had fallen sharply due to his body's decline, also returned to its peak. All the sound from the surroundings came into the ears, and it seemed extremely clear. Is this my peak strength? A fire flashed in Whitebeard's eyes. Speaking fiercely, he unplugged the infusion tube from his body, his tall body stood up from the bed, and a strong momentum spread out. Dang dang, the wine bowl at the head of the table fell to the ground. It was just the inadvertent breath that caused the things in the room to start shaking. Father? The crew waiting outside heard the movement. When I saw Whitebeard walk out, I was a little puzzled. I don't know why my dad got up so late. But soon, they felt a terrible breath. This inadvertent breath suffocated the crew present. As a result, they opened their eyes wide, and subconsciously grasped their necks, like a fish losing water. Old. Father's aura is stronger than before. A crew member was clutching his neck, his face flushed as if suffocating, but he ignored it and looked at Whitebeard in shock. Although Whitebeard's previous aura was strong, It gave people a sense of twilight, just like an old lion. But now he is like the real king of the grassland, full of vigor. Whitebeard ignored the call, stepped on the splint, and walked towards the bow of the mobile. Tread. 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 The sound of calm footsteps spread. The breath on his body became stronger and stronger, and in the end, it even spread to other ships. After reaching the top of the bow, Whitebeard clenched his fists sharply. Drink. A low anger came from his mouth. The giant fist smashed into the air on both sides like a giant force. Click. The fist seemed to hit something, and the air shattered like glass, producing ripples. As the ripples spread, the power of terror boiled. Seeing this, Whitebeard did not stop, but strenuously stretched his arms, and the terrible shaking force also surged around like a raging wave. Click. The cracks in the air spread quickly. Under the force of this shaking, the sky-shattering tsunami rolled in, and then exploded fiercely, falling back into the sea like a torrential rain from the sky. Poseidon passing by this sea area was shocked by the shockwave, his huge body burst instantly, and the scarlet blood dyed the sea red. The loud noise alarmed everyone. More than 40 pirate ships were lit up, and noisy sounds sounded. Father. What happened? Is it an enemy attack? Did Marine attack us? How could it be possible that although there are Marine warships monitoring us around, how dare those warships attack us? There was a chaotic and anxious voice. I saw all the captains and captains of the Whitebeard pirate group rushing forward. But before they finished speaking, they saw the figure standing on the bow of the mobile. The tall and strong body turned its back to everyone. Under the bright moonlight, this figure released a strong breath. Even if a group of captains are far apart, they can feel it. Everyone just took a look, and their whole body trembled, and a chill rose from the bottom of their hearts, as if they had fallen into an ice cave. At this moment, what people see is not human. But peerless beast. Old. Daddy. With a golden punk head and a dagger on his waist, Marco, with the Whitebeard pirate's tattoo on his chest, slipped cold sweat on his forehead. Even if he was good at strength, he was shocked by this momentum. It's such a strong breath. What happened to the old man? Joes, who is burly, muscular, broad-chested, and dark-skinned, whispered in a low voice, with a shocked expression on his face. I don't know if it is his illusion. I found that my father's momentum has changed drastically. Like a revived lion. Light momentum makes people feel desperate. Joes, do you think so too? Beasta, with a black curled beard and known as a foil, said solemnly. I thought it was my own illusion, but now it seems that it is not the case, but that the old man has really changed. Goo la la la. A deep laughter came from Whitebeard's mouth. He tilted his head slightly and showed his sharp right eye, as if looking straight at everyone. Tomorrow we are going to Marineford. The next thing we will face will be 100,000 Marine elite, Marshal Admiral of 7 warlords of the sea and marine. Sons, you guys. Are you afraid? The words fell, and the audience fell silent. But soon, a roar came from the mouths of many captains. Father, how could we be afraid? Ace is our brother. No matter how strong Marine is, we must rescue him. Yes, we are the Whitebeard pirates. They dare to hurt Ace. I must let him know and offend me the fate of the Whitebeard pirates. Rescue Ace. The crowd roared out. Goo la la la. Whitebeard laughed loudly, and turned around fiercely. The tall and strong body turned into a black shadow in the moonlight, covering the entire Moby Dick. If this is the case, then let go and let everyone in the world know. Offend our fate. Well. Let Marine know how powerful our Whitebeard pirates is. As long as there is an old man, no matter how strong Marine is, we can win and save Ace. Long live Daddy. Thousands of crew members cheered upon hearing this. Under the cheers, Whitebeard slowly walked off the bow, and even if he hadn't deliberately released it, Whitebeard was still surging around. The captains and captains standing below suddenly stopped breathing. Papa. You. A look of shock appeared on Marco's face. It was found that the infusion tube that was usually hung on the old man's body had disappeared. Although the appearance of the old man is still the same, his mental state has undergone earth-shaking changes, which is completely different from the previous twilight feeling. Father, are you getting better? Joes asked hurriedly. When this word fell, everyone looked at their father. Although Whitebeard is known as the strongest man in the world, everyone on the ship knows that his father is tortured by illness. Although the strength is strong, he usually needs to hang the infusion bottle to maintain his body. Goo la la la. The old guy Sengoku summoned 100,000 Marines and waited for me to throw himself into the snare. Since he gave me such a gift, as an old friend, why don't I respond back? Whitebeard didn't answer directly, but laughed. It is true. Father, you really recovered? Great, Daddy, your body is restored. Who else is your opponent in this world, Daddy? The captains heard this cheering, and their faces showed excitement. Facing 100,000 marine, this is no joke. Although the captains are not afraid, they also know that this will be a hard fight, and if they are not careful, the entire army may be wiped out. Now that the old man is recovering, they have more confidence in rescuing Ace. But don't be happy too early. The old guy Sengoku is not so easy to deal with. All the captains come to my room, I have to make a new plan. Whitebeard put away his smile and strode into the room. Replanning? Marco and others were taken aback. After they got the news of Ace's arrest, they decided to rescue Ace. Just this morning, they have coated all the boats, ready to sail, bypassing the gate of justice and directly into Marineford. But just as he was about to leave, Dad wanted to change his plan. This made him a little confused. Marco, what do you say is the new plan of the old man? Beasta couldn't help asking. Do not know. Marco shook his head. Since the old man wants to change the plan, he must have thought of a better plan. There will never be a problem. Chowzi said in a urn. Yes. The other captains smiled at each other and walked into the house. After finding a seat in the house, everyone looked up at Whitebeard, waiting for their father's new plan. Father, what exactly is our new plan? Marco spoke first. When the words fell, everyone looked at Whitebeard. Goo la la la, how do you think we are going to rescue Ace? Whitebeard laughed, his eyes swept across the captains. Of course it is to attack Marineford directly, let Marine know how good we are, and then rescue Ace. Isn't this a plan made before? Beasta couldn't help Kaido. The other captains nodded after hearing this. Although this plan is not perfect, it can bypass the gate of justice and catch Marine by surprise. I thought so before, but now that I think about it, first underestimate Marine. Whitebeard grabbed the wine tank next to it and filled it violently. After drinking, he wiped his mouth and put the wine tank back on the table. He glanced at the captains. This time Sengoku has gathered 100,000 elites. 7 warlords of the sea were summoned, and 3 admiral guards were added. It is difficult to make a frontal assault to rescue Ace. When this word fell, all the captains fell silent. Although they are pirates, they are not fools. Everyone knows how powerful naval headquarters is. If you assault head-on, even if Ace is rescued, the Whitebeard pirates will suffer heavy losses. The reason why no one opposed it before was because it was a decision made by the father, and as sons, they should fully support it. Now the old man himself proposed the flaws of the plan, reminding everyone of the possible consequences of this plan. Then, Papa, what do you mean? Marco asked suspiciously. Ace should be imprisoned in Impel Down now, right? Whitebeard spoke slowly. Many captains were surprised. Father, you mean, we don't go to Marineford, but go directly to Impel Down to rescue Ace? After saying this, the captains suddenly started talking. Marineford gathered 100,000 Marines, and went there to rescue Ace, which was completely hell difficulty. But going to Impel Down is different. The power of Impel Down is extremely weak compared to the Whitebeard pirates. If you go there, you can save Ace. The time to go to Impel Down is the same as the time to go to Marineford, but father, we don't know when Ace will be pressed to Marineford. Marco shook his head. When this word fell, everyone was quiet. The flame of excitement in his heart was also directly extinguished like a basin of cold water. Yes. They don't even know when Marine will escort Ace. In case Ace was pressed to Marineford ahead of time, wouldn't they have gone for nothing? A trip for nothing is not the point. When they reach Impel Down, they will definitely be exposed. At that time, if you want to break into Marineford again, you can only attack by storm. A storm is 10 times more difficult than a breakthrough. Once stormed, the Whitebeard pirates will definitely suffer heavy losses. Goo la la la. I know what you are worried about, but I have received news that Ace's time to go to Marineford is the day of the execution. We have enough time. Whitebeard laughed. He has read the original work of the pirate and knows the time when Ace was taken away. If you go to Impel Down now, it's completely too late. Of course, it doesn't matter if he missed it, he went to Impel Down for another purpose. That is, release all the prisoners. With the current strength of the Whitebeard pirates, he rushed into Marineford, and even if he regained his peak strength, the result would not change. Because Marine's power is too strong, with his peak power, he may be able to contend against the 3 Admiral on his own. But can it still compete with the combination of Garp, Sengoku and the 3 Admiral? And there is a lot of high-level combat power hidden in Marine. For example, Momoshagi and T-Dolphin, who are candidates for Admiral, are both candidates for Admiral, and they must be very strong. Even if it wasn't his opponent, it would be no problem to contain Marco and others. So if you want to get rid of this desperate situation, you can only increase your strength. And Impel Down is the best choice. Impel Down the 6th floor, but watching a bunch of monsters. Don't ask for all these monsters to take action. As long as you find one or two to deal with Marine, you can contain part of Marine's high-end combat power. This is the real reason why he went to Impel Down. Really? Daddy, did you get the news? Great, this way we might be able to rescue Ace in advance. Ace is waiting for us, we will come right away. The captains didn't know what Whitebeard was thinking. After hearing this, they were suddenly surprised. Of course. But in order to prevent accidents, this time we will divide our troops into two. Joz and Beasta will go to Impel Down with me. Marco, you take the remaining captain and follow the original plan. Whitebeard said in a deep voice. Although he knew the original work, he didn't know if there would be an accident. In the event of an accident, it would be difficult to break into Marineford. So it's best to split the pawns in two ways. Firstly, the power of Impel Down is not strong. If he takes Beasta and Joz, he can completely sweep Impel Down. In the second, if something goes wrong, Ace will be pushed to Marineford ahead of time. The main force of the Whitebeard pirate group has already penetrated into the headquarters, and there will be no need to spend a large price to attack Marineford. Does the soldiers split? I see, Daddy. Marco nodded his head and looked at Joz and Beasta again. You and Dad go to Impel Down, you must protect Dad's safety. Do not worry. Beasta nodded. As long as I'm here, absolutely no one can hurt Daddy a bit. Joz clapped his chest and laughed. Sons. Whitebeard stood up abruptly and glanced at the captains. There is not much time left for us, let's start now. Yes, father. The captains shouted. Kaido, speaking, led by Whitebeard, walked out of the room. To implement this plan, the first thing to do is not to go to Impel Down, but to erase the 23 marine warships that are monitoring them. Ta-ta-ta. Heavy footsteps sounded. Whitebeard walked out with a group of captains, holding a telescope and looking at the distant sea. Goo la la la, these marines really don't hide it at all. Whitebeard laughed. Although the 23 marine warships were reconnaissance, they didn't have much cover-up, and they could be seen with the binoculars. With the strength of the old man, even if Marine wants to hide, he can't hide it. Marco slapped a little flattery. Well, drive the Moby Dick closer to the warship. You also return to your ship immediately, and when I destroy these warships, immediately set off as planned. Whitebeard said solemnly. Yes, father. The captains responded with a bang. After turning around, he returned to his ship, immediately turned the bow, and headed towards the warship. Marine 23 warships. Since Naval Headquarters announced the news of the execution of Ace, they have been monitoring Whitebeard's every move in this area. But they didn't understand Whitebeard's behavior. Because since the day before yesterday, all the forces under the Whitebeard pirate group have gathered around this small island, and it seems that there is no plan to rescue Ace. This left the Marines wondering what attention Whitebeard was paying. Colonel Oliver, the Whitebeard pirates have begun to move, and they are coming towards us. A seaman hurried over. What? Oliver, the head colonel in charge of monitoring the Whitebeard pirate group, was startled and immediately picked up the binoculars and looked in the direction of the island. I don't know, I was shocked at first glance. I saw that the Whitebeard pirates, which had not been moving, turned around one after another, seeming to make big moves. Captain, what should we do now? The sea soldier couldn't help asking. Turn the rudder and retreat immediately, don't conflict with the Whitebeard pirates. Oliver gave the order. Before he came, he had received clear instructions from Sengoku. That is, the 23 warships only need to monitor the Whitebeard pirates, and must not conflict with the Whitebeard pirates. Once a conflict occurs, these 23 warships will never win. Now that the Whitebeard pirate group is coming in mighty, he naturally won't be waiting here foolishly. Yes. The Marines saluted and retired. After the order was communicated, the warship immediately turned around and retreated. The Whitebeard pirates who came to the warship also discovered this. Father, the marine warship has retreated, Marco reported quickly. Goo la la la, it seems that these Marines are not stupid. Whitebeard laughed, and then his eyes became fierce. Speed? Up and catch up with the marine warship. Yes. Marco nodded. Under orders, the Whitebeard pirates quickly pursued them. The two sides gradually narrowed the distance as they chased and fled, and the marine warship, which could only be seen by a telescope, can now be seen with the naked eye. Sengoku, my old friend, before the war begins, let me give you a big gift. Goo la la la. Whitebeard looked at the small black spot in the distant sea and laughed. Then, under the admiring gaze of all the crew, step by step towards the bow of the mobile. When he came to the top of the bow, his aura rose, his arms stretched even more. Drink. With a loud shout, both fists fell. The air was directly smashed by a punch, and the terrifying shock wave spread rapidly, and the surrounding sea began to tremble. Boom. There was a loud roar. The dark green water rolled up huge waves toward the warship, like 10,000 galloping horses, charging the enemy. The seamen on the marine warship turned pale when they saw the terrifying waves, and their eyes showed hopelessness. Why are there huge waves on the calm sea? It's over, it's all over. It must be the ghost of the Whitebeard pirates. The Marines watched all this in horror. Whitebeard has the ability of shock fruit, and it is rumored that it can set off a huge wave. Is this the strength of the world's strongest man? A look of despair appeared in Colonel Oliver's eyes. In the face of such a mighty force, he couldn't even produce a heart of resistance. Boom. With a loud roar, the huge wave directly crushed the warship. With the boiling of the waves, the fragmented seaship slowly sank into the sea, and gradually disappeared with the sound of bubbles. One strike. Whitebeard only took one blow. All the 23 marine warships under surveillance will be wiped out. So amazing. Daddy wiped out all marine warships with just one blow. Who else is Daddy's opponent in this world? The crew of the Whitebeard pirate group was shocked, and they looked at Whitebeard standing on the mobile deck in admiration. At this moment, Whitebeard is like a god in everyone's hearts. This is the strength of the old man. Marco was extremely proud. In his opinion, there are indeed people in this world who can destroy 23 seaships in an instant, but there are definitely not many people who are as relaxed as his own father. Ha 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 ha. Because of this, Dad is called the strongest in the world. Joes laughed. The other captains next to it listened, quite appreciative of it. After seeing those new crew members who had just joined the pirates but hadn't seen Whitebeard take action, so shocked the new crew members burst into laughter. Put my chin away. What kind of means is this? My father's strength is far more than that. Hearing this, the new crew looked at Whitebeard's gaze, admiring it beyond all levels. At this moment, everyone feels. With such a powerful father, even if Marine gathers all his power, he will not be the opponent of the Whitebeard pirates. Under everyone's enthusiastic gaze, Whitebeard slowly retracted his arm. Then he grabbed the big knife fiercely, and slammed it heavily on the ship's board. He turned his head slightly, glanced at everyone like a blade, and a deep laughter spread all around. Goo la la la, my sons, start our plan to let the world see the fate of the Whitebeard pirates. Well, all the crew members cheered enthusiastically. As the waves rolled, the giant ships slowly sank into the ocean of Wangyang. And their destination is Marineford and impelled down. Marineford. A huge building with a seagull pattern stands in the middle of the island. This building is Naval Headquarters. Following the announcement of the execution of Ace, Naval Headquarters deployed various defenses. A warship docked in front of the bay. There are still many cannons on the bay, blocking the entire Marineford enclosure. Of course, in addition to these basic defenses, 100,000 elite Marines and Shichibukai who had been summoned also all arrived. Now wait for the Whitebeard pirates to throw themselves into the net. Headquarters Marshal's office. With a bang, a seaman hurried in. What happened? Panicked. Sengoku scolded. Marshal Sengoku, the 23 warships monitoring Whitebeard, all lost contact. The sea soldier saluted, and then said hurriedly. What? Sengoku's face changed drastically when he heard this. He knows what it means for a warship to lose contact. Last night the headquarters still kept in touch with the warships under surveillance, but just half an hour ago, all the 23 warships lost their response. No matter how they called, they did not reply. The Marines recounted what had happened. I see. Sengoku took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Call all Vice Admiral and above generals to come to the conference room council. Yes. The seamen retreated. Soon, news of the convocation reached every Vice Admiral and Admiral. After receiving the news, a group of Vice Admiral came to the meeting room, sitting on both sides of the long table in the meeting room, holding their breath, waiting for Sengoku to speak. However, among the many senior generals, only one is missing. And this person is impressively known as the Marine hero Garp. What about Garp? Sengoku, who was standing in the front, looked around, and suddenly asked in a deep voice after seeing that a figure was missing. He doesn't want to come. Crane Vice Admiral shook his head. This guy. Sengoku frowned, but he also knew why Garp didn't want to come. Because Ace, who is about to be executed, is Garp's grandson. Then don't wait for him. After saying, glanced at all the senior generals, his expression became extremely serious. Everyone has come here, I must know the news. The generals nodded. All 23 warships monitoring Whitebeard have lost contact, which shows that Whitebeard has already started. And Whitebeard has only one purpose. That's rescue Huo Fist Ace. Sengoku said loudly. When these words fell, the atmosphere of the meeting room changed. The pupils of many generals shrank, and a solemn color appeared on their faces. Although I knew the news before I came here, speaking from Sengoku's mouth still shocked the generals. Because Whitebeard is no ordinary person. It is one of the 4 emperors, known as the strongest man in the world. Once you come to Marineford to rescue Ace, you will definitely collide with naval headquarters. At that time, the entire naval headquarters may be ruined. Yeah, the Whitebeard pirates came out, it's so terrible. Kizaru Admiral with a wretched face with Erlang's legs upright exaggerated. The Whitebeard pirate group is very powerful. If all of them are dispatched, it is indeed a big trouble. Aokiji on the side nodded without thinking. In the end, Sakazuki, known as a Kainu Admiral, remained silent and seemed to be thinking about something. The rest of Vice Admiral also frowned, thinking the news was tricky. Since Whitebeard has started to monitor warships, he must be ready for war. Now the Whitebeard pirates may have already approached Marineford. Just when everyone was dignified, Vice Admiral Mole said. Sengoku nodded, and his face became heavy again. But I don't know what Whitebeard is doing, or whether Whitebeard has come out in full force. Without specific information, we have fallen into a passive position. Yeah, I heard that Whitebeard cares about his family most. Firefist Ace will be executed. Whitebeard will not abandon his son, right? Kizaru interjected with Erlang's legs upright. When the words fell, Sengoku fell silent. He and Whitebeard are also old opponents and know each other very well. Now Huaquan Ace is arrested and is about to be put to death. With Whitebeard's character, he will definitely try his best to rescue him. So even if you don't know the information, you can guess what Whitebeard will do next. Perusalino is right. Before the execution of Firefist Ace, Whitebeard will definitely come. So, be prepared for the battle. Crane Vice Admiral's tone became serious. When these words fell, the atmosphere in the conference room became more serious. Some Vice Admiral's breathing was even more stagnant, and felt an invisible pressure. Who is Whitebeard? I'm afraid no one knows the whole new world. The opponent is the king of the same era as One Piece Roger. Known as the strongest in the world. Even the redheads, Aunts and Kaido who are the same 4 emperors are not comparable to the old king in strength and fame. Now Marine's behavior has completely angered the maritime overlord. The next thing they have to face is the monstrous anger of this overlord. This makes some Vice Admiral, who have never faced such a strong man, doubt whether they can defeat the king of the old age. In that case, before the execution, everyone is fully prepared. Whitebeard's strength is beyond imagination. It is Marine's strongest enemy. This battle can only be won without defeat. Sengoku took a deep breath and shouted in a deep voice. Yes. A group of high-ranking generals responded in a sudden. After the meeting, the news that 23 warships lost contact also spread throughout Marineford. All Marine and Shichibukai know about it. Whitebeard has set off for Marineford. For a time, the cloud of war enveloped the entire island. Whether Marine Admiral or 7 warlords of the sea, they all have a heavy heart, knowing that they are about to endure the wrath of this sea lord. Impel Down. The world's first prison. Vicious prisoners from all over the world are held inside. But just yesterday, a pirate named Luffy turned Impel Down upside down and almost rescued Ace. Fortunately, the Warden Magellan made a strong move to suppress the farce. Luffy in the straw hat is really bold, daring to Impel Down. Yes, but it's a pity that the guardian of Impel Down is Warden Magellan, so no matter who comes, I don't want to rescue any prisoner from the prison. Those pirates underestimate the power here. Before Impel Down the gate, the seaman guarding the gate chatted. After mentioning the 3 characters Magellan, admiration appeared on his face. The biggest reason why Impel Down is indestructible is because of the guard of Magellan. Magellan, with the ability to poison fruit, is the strongest barrier for Impel Down. No matter who comes, they never want to break through this iron wall. Guru, 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 while chatting with the guards of the seamen. The sea directly in front of Impel Down, but blisters kept coming up. And there were more and more blisters, and the sound became louder and louder, until in the end, the water boiled, as if something was about to come out. F.A. What happened? The guards of the Marines were alarmed and looked towards the sea ahead. I saw the water rushing violently, and after a huge wave was set off, a giant ship that looked like a whale rose up into the sky. Wow! The sky full of seawater fell like heavy rain. The huge ship soaring into the sky also slammed into the sea, setting off a huge wave, and then stopped steadily. The guard seaman was dumbfounded. One by one stared dumbfounded at the huge ship that suddenly appeared. Looking up along the giant ship, after seeing the skull banner with the crescent moon beard, his body trembled suddenly. This banner. A seaman's teeth trembled, and he pointed at the giant ship with fear. This flag is the flag of Whitebeard. What? The other seaman on guard heard the face change drastically. When I looked closely, I saw the banner of the famous New World. It's really Whitebeard's banner. As Whitebeard impelled down? What does he want to do? Is he trying to save Ace from impelled down? All the guards of the seamen were frightened. Even a little timid, just seeing this banner, was frightened and collapsed to the ground, shaking uncontrollably. The name of Whitebeard is too loud, known as the strongest in the world. Once you attack impelled down, the entire impelled down will be destroyed. Quickly, report it to Warden Magellan. A sea soldier finally woke up and shouted sternly. The surrounding Marines were agitated, and with a face full of fear, they staggered towards a place inside the gate. There was a red button there, then pressed it violently. Impel down the monitoring room. Dressed in black, Magellan is standing in front of the surveillance video, looking at every corner of the underground prison. Did the prisoners who escaped the prison yesterday be taken back? Back to the warden, the custody has been completed. Where is the broken place? It is being repaired, and it will be repaired in about 2 days. Magellan nodded in satisfaction. Yesterday, a pirate who lived and died broke into impelled down, and made a lot of noise. Fortunately, it was easily solved by him, and it didn't cause much loss. Seeing everything as before, he turned and left, thinking about taking a break. But before progressing, a harsh voice sounded. Magellan stopped, his face changed, and he looked in one direction of the monitoring station. It's the alarm at the prison gate, the staff quickly said. What happened? Magellan frowned, looked at the video of the surveillance gate, and then saw a huge ship appeared in the sea in front of impelled down. This huge ship is like a whale, and at the top of the bow stood a tall figure. Seeing this figure, Magellan's face changed drastically. The eyes are even more incredible. But soon, he woke up, resisting the horror in his heart, and sternly shouted, Hannibal, you immediately go to the 6th floor and press fire fist ace to Marineford in advance. Hannibal, naked, with a big belly and bat wings behind him, didn't react. However, following Magellan's gaze, after seeing everything in the surveillance video, his body trembled suddenly, and a look of horror appeared on his face. Hurry up, Magellan shouted. Yes. Hannibal was agitated, turned and headed towards the elevator. He knew that if he didn't take Ace away as soon as possible, there might be no chance again. Woo. Magellan took a sigh of relief and forced herself to calm down. Notify Saru Des and Sati that they have an enemy, and prepare them for a full-scale battle. At the same time, let out that bastard, the warden? Domino's face changed. She knew who the bastard was in Magellan's mouth. Now is not the time to think so much. If he is not released, the entire impelled down may be destroyed today. Magellan's tone was solemn. Then he said nothing, turned and walked outside. Now that the enemy is coming, as the warden, he must set an example to meet the attacking enemy. Yes. Domino took a deep breath and left immediately. Orders were issued at the fastest speed, and the impelled down that had just gone through the chaos for a short time, riots again. The Marines guarding the major prisons are ready to fight like enemies. The cloud of war envelops impelled down 6 floors up and down. The atmosphere of the prison suddenly became solemn. This kind of dignity can even be noticed by the prisoners in custody. This made a group of prisoners wonder, what had happened in the end, made the Marines assume such a posture. Ta-ta-da. Heavy footsteps sounded. Whitebeard stepped to the top of the Moby Dick. After arriving at the top of the bow, looking at the huge city towering in front of him, a sharp look appeared in his eyes. If he can rescue Ace here, he will be able to stop Marco and the others from heading to Marineford, and the upcoming war on the top will also be avoided. Whitebeard. A shrill scream sounded. The seamen guarding the gate looked at this figure in horror. They did not expect that the man known as the strongest in the world would appear here. And it still appeared without any notice. What is the name of the ghost? An angry shout appeared. The warden Magellan walked out with a group of jailers, and then stared at the figure standing on the bow of the ship. Warden Magellan. The guards of the seamen were inexplicably relieved when they saw the incoming person. Goo la la la, little Magellan, my son Ace, how are you doing now? Standing on the bow of the ship, Whitebeard violently raised his sword and slammed it heavily on the board, looking at each other condescendingly, with a grandiose laugh in his mouth. Huaquan Ace has already been pressed to Marineford, and Marshal Sengoku decided to execute Huaquan Ace in advance. Whitebeard. You came to the wrong place. The pressure in Magellan's heart increased sharply. But he still resisted this pressure and said something nonsense. The order to escort Ace has just been issued, and he doesn't know whether Sengoku will execute Ace in advance. But the only thing I know is that Whitebeard must be held for a while now. He even used this lie to make Whitebeard retreat. Hey. I'm afraid no one will believe this stupid thing. Beasta sneered on the side. Father, do it. Joes clenched his fist, and the brilliance of the diamond slowly climbed up his arm. Little Magellan. Whitebeard's tone became low, and the breath on his body was released like a raging wave, sweeping the surrounding area. Give me. Get out of the way. Boom. The terrible conqueror's hockey swept across. The strong breath swept past, producing huge coercion. The jailers following Magellan were swept away by pressure, grabbing their necks one by one, their faces flushed like suffocation. Then everyone foamed at their mouths and collapsed to the ground, unable to stand up anymore. Whitebeard. Magellan was sweating coldly. Faced with such a terrible breath, even he was terrified. But he was the warden, and he immediately reacted with a lot of purple liquid coming out of his body. Poison dragon. There was a roar. The venom sprayed out, forming 3 huge poisonous dragons, which slammed into Whitebeard. Leave it to me here, Daddy. Beasta stood up and drew the 2 long swords from his waist. Speaking, the body jumped up, the swords crossed together, and as the arms waved, a sharp light flashed. Huh. The light pierced all around like lightning. 2 huge crescent-like slashes appeared, slashing the seawater and the ground, and slicing vertically on the rushing poisonous dragon. The poisonous dragon, which was still opening its teeth and dancing its claws, was instantly split into 2 halves. Then it turned into a pile of venom and scattered on the ground. The Magellan imp is a very poisonous man. His ability is venom, don't be touched by his venom. Whitebeard spoke. After speaking, he jumped down from the bow and rushed towards Impel Down. Seeing this, Joz immediately followed. Don't want to pass me. Magellan has a big face. His body flashed, trying to stop Whitebeard. Hey. If you want to fight against Daddy, get past me first. Beasta laughed, the swords crossed, and the huge slash reappeared, rushing towards Magellan. Facing such a terrible slash, Magellan had to defend. And Whitebeard and Joz also took advantage of this opportunity and rushed inside. But as soon as I entered, I ran into a large number of jailers. Ace is kept on the 6th floor. Whitebeard spoke slowly. Speaking of holding a broadsword in his hand, he walked calmly step by step. As for the jailer who surrounded him, he didn't take it seriously. And as he moved forward, the jailers were sweating coldly, but they also backed away, not daring to do anything at all. There are even timid people who are directly frightened and collapse to the ground. Because the man in front of me is Whitebeard. The strongest man in the world. In the face of such a terrifying existence, ordinary jailers don't even talk about hands-on, even at a glance, they feel frightened, without the slightest intent to fight. You want to be an enemy with me? Whitebeard stopped and scanned the jailers sharply. What? Sweeping this gaze, the jailers present screamed out in an instant, each of them slumped to the ground with fear. Don't talk about touching Whitebeard, you can't even stand up. Damn it. Ordinary jailers don't have the courage to act at all. The long guard Domino was sweating coldly. But she didn't blame the jailers, because even her head guard, facing the strongest person in the world, felt cold and stiff in her hands and feet. Let's go. Whitebeard looked at the jailer who had lost his fighting spirit, and walked in with a large knife in his hand. And Domino, the chief caretaker, also reacted. Enduring the panic in his heart, he sternly shouted at Whitebeard. Stop for me. This is the great undersea prison where prisoners are held. As the chief guard, I will never let any pirate pass by me. Although she was afraid of Whitebeard, but her inner justice did not allow her to remain motionless and allow Whitebeard to leave. Even if this behavior may cost you your life. Father, leave it to me. Joz grinned. The light of the diamond illuminates the surroundings, and the toe of his right foot slams on the ground. Click. Cracks in the ground are pervasive. And Joz's figure also rushed out and came to Domino in an instant. The arm was shrouded in diamonds, severely smashed down. Boom. There was a loud noise. Domino, who had been deterred by Whitebeard, was blown out with a punch before he could react. After falling to the ground, he vomited blood and couldn't stand up anymore. Whitebeard glanced, retracted his gaze, and moved on. Crimson Hell. Warcraft Hell. Starvation Hell. Blazing Hell. In just a short time, Whitebeard and Joz broke through the 4th floor of the underground prison and reached the 5th floor, Freezing Hell. Although there was a jailer obstructed along the way, it was easily solved by Joz. The behavior of the two naturally attracted the attention of all prisoners. It's Whitebeard. The prisoners on the 5th floor were horrified. Everyone did not expect that Whitebeard, one of the 4 emperors, would appear in Impel Down. But after everyone reacted, all the prisoners rioted. Damn Whitebeard. How dare you come to Impel Down? Let me out. I want to avenge my crew. Whitebeard. You just need to let me out. I am willing to join the Whitebeard pirates. Please, take me away. The prisoners roared, pleaded, and cursed. Everyone knows what the 3 words Whitebeard stand for. If Whitebeard really wants to take them away, they can definitely leave this blind cage. Clang. Whitebeard smashed the handle of the knife against the ground heavily. The majestic gaze scanned all the prisoners in LV5 prison, and there was a deep laughter in his mouth. Goo la la la, do you want to go out? When the words fell, the prison suddenly fell silent. The prisoners in the cell were all staring wide-eyed. Although they yelled for Whitebeard to let him go, everyone knew that such a thing was impossible. After all, many people locked up here are caused by Whitebeard. There were even some that Whitebeard sent in. But now Whitebeard asked them, do you want to go out? Whitebeard, as long as you let me out, our previous hatred will be wiped out. From then on, I will recognize you as the captain. A prisoner slammed into the prison railing and shouted with excitement. His name is Elliot Baker, a big pirate with a bounty of up to 200 million. 7 years ago, he took aim at the Whitebeard pirates recklessly, trying to defeat Whitebeard and replace the 4 emperors. Finally defeated, the crew was killed, and he was arrested by Marine. It can be said that there is a deep hatred with the Whitebeard pirates. But those are things of the past. After entering Impel Down, he was tortured by the low temperature, and he has reached the limit. If you don't go out, you will die here sooner or later. Faced with the threat of death, he had long forgotten to avenge Whitebeard. Now as long as Whitebeard releases him, he is even willing to be a dog, biting anyone for Whitebeard. Yes. As long as we let us out, we are willing to pay any price. Whitebeard, please, let us go. The other prisoners also yelled out excitedly. Facing the endless torture, even the unruly pirates have been wiped out, and now they just want to escape this magic cave. Then compete. LV5 Hell will have 10 places. Before I leave, I will leave with 10 people. As for who is leaving, it's up to you to decide. Whitebeard spoke slowly. After speaking, without giving the prisoner a chance to react, he led JOZ to the 6th floor. It's up to us to decide. Many prisoners reacted and understood the meaning of these words. The prisoners who wanted to live had a red light in their eyes, and they did not hesitate to kill those around them. Soon, freezing hell screamed horribly. Impel down the 6th floor, eternal hell. The prisoners who can enter this level of prison are all powerful or extremely vicious generations. Pirates with hundreds of millions of bounty, grab a lot in this one. After receiving Magellan's instructions, Hannibal immediately took the elevator and came here. He opened the cell as quickly as possible and walked in. There are 2 figures in the cell. Both of them were tied with chains specially made by Seastone, and they seemed to be worried about the prisoner's escape. And one of the 2 is Ace, known as the Fire Fist. It is also the target of Whitebeard's rescue this time. Take Fire Fist Ace away. Hannibal spoke with a heavy face. The 2 jailers next to him immediately took action, unfastened the chains, pressed Ace, who was naked, and left in a hurry. Brother Ace. The huge Jinbei opened his eyes. Looking at Ace being taken away, there was a look of worry in his eyes. The warden Magellan didn't come, but the deputy warden hurriedly escorted the kid away. It's really interesting. A deep laughter sounded. Jinbei turned his head and looked, and saw Shichibukai Crocodile, the original Shichibukai Crocodile, who was nicknamed the Sand Crocodile, watching Hannibal leave with a sneer. Crocodile. What do you mean? Jinbei couldn't help asking. Don't understand yet. Crocodile sneered. That kid is the son of the old man Whitebeard. He is very important to Marine. If he wants to go to Marineford, he will definitely be checked by Magellan himself. But now only Hannibal has arrived, and it's still in such a hurry. Do you think this kind of thing is reasonable? When this word fell, Jinbei was taken aback. After thinking for a while, he asked in a deep voice. You mean, there has been a change in the underwater prison? This change may be related to the Ace brothers, so Hannibal has to take Ace away in advance? Logically speaking, the last day of execution will be in a while. It was also at that time that Ace would be taken away. But now Ace was taken away early. This is enough to show that Impel Down has changed, forcing the warden to do so. Humph. Just don't know what happened. Crocodile sneered. Jinbei sighed secretly. Although it was speculated that something happened outside, the detainees were unable to contribute and could only wait for the development of the situation. But what the 2 of them didn't expect was, just after Ace was taken away for less than 20 minutes. A scream came from a distance, and it was very ear-piercing in the silent infinite prison. At the same time, a tall figure slowly approached in secret. Finally appeared in front of all the prisoners. Who? The prisoners on the 6th floor opened their eyes one after another, looking at the tall figures coming from a distance. Hey, a sneer sounded. The figure finally emerged from the fire. I saw that this man was extremely tall, wearing the costume of an undersea prison officer, and a long sword at his waist. He was dangling his cigar and looking at the cells on both sides of the prison. Seeing this, everyone's eyes flashed with surprise. Rain. Shiryu. Hey, you ran out, Crocodile sneered. I can remember that you, like us, were taken into custody by Magellan. That fellow Magellan doesn't have time to control me. Not only that, I was able to come out thanks to the guy's order. Yuji Shiryu spit out a smoke ring and laughed. In the original book, he will also be released. It's just that Luffy will be released after he recovers, and then escapes with Ivankov, causing a riot in the underwater prison. Now that Whitebeard arrived, he was released a few hours earlier. However, the personality of the other party has not changed as a result. Still the same as in the original book, killed the jailer in LV6 prison. No time to worry about you? It seems that Magellan is in big trouble. Crocodile sneered. It's really a big trouble. Or it's a big trouble for everyone present, and you may die if you are not careful. Rain Shiryu sneered again and again. Then he said nothing, leaned his back against the wall, and closed his eyes. If you are not careful, you will die. This remark attracted the attention of all prisoners in LV6 prison. Everyone is thinking about what happened to Impel Down that would make Magellan release the mob, Shiryu of Rain. The 5th floor is freezing hell. Through the passage, Whitebeard and JOZ finally reached the 6th floor. However, as soon as they reached the 6th floor, the two saw the bodies of jailers everywhere, as if they had just experienced a massacre here. The blood is still hot, and it's not long before these jailers die. Joes squatted down, touched the blood and said, could it be that a prisoner has escaped from here? Don't worry, find Ace first. Whitebeard spoke slowly. It is difficult to escape from eternal hell. Now that the jailer is killed, there is only one possibility that Shiryu of the Rain is released. But if the other party can't get out, it has nothing to do with him. With that, walk towards the inside of the prison. At this time, the inmates in the 6th tier prison were still thinking about what Shiryu of Rain meant. It was not until a sound of footsteps sounded that many prisoners were awakened. Tread. 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 The sound of steady footsteps rang, and in the silent eternal hell, it seemed unusually harsh. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound through the cracks in the iron bars of the cell. I saw two figures coming from far and near. The dark shadow stretched so long under the orange flame that it was hard to tell whether the owner of the shadow was a male or a female. Are they the one that Yuji Shiryu said determines our life and death? The prisoners sneered. But as soon as these words fell, everyone felt a strong momentum. The momentum spread, and the prisoners of LV6 prison were shocked. How familiar is this oppressive aura? Crocodile stood up abruptly and walked towards the door of the cell step by step, staring in the direction of the incoming person. Is that you? Old man Whitebeard. Under everyone's gaze, the figure finally appeared. The tall body, the white beard with a crescent moon, and the strong breath like a lion. Seeing this man, all the prisoners calmed down. Unbelievable colors are revealed in the eyes. Whitebeard. One Piece Roger, the king of the sea in the same era. Eternal hell appeared in Impel Down at this time. Whitebeard, it's really you. Crocodile was the first to react, slamming his palm against the iron bars of the cell, bloodshot eyes. Ha 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 ha, it turned out to be you. Whitebeard, it's been a long time since I saw you, but I remember Birdie David who was defeated by you. Damn Whitebeard, I'm going to kill you. Interesting, you come to eternal hell, do you want to save someone? The prisoners on the 6th floor woke up, roaring and laughing. It's you, Kid Crocodile. Whitebeard slowly turned his head, and after seeing the familiar face, he spoke calmly. You actually broke into Impel Down. Crocodile looked complicated, but soon burst into laughter. But unfortunately, you are a step late. Papa Whitebeard. Hearing the movement, Jinbei stood up excitedly. Brother Ace was taken away 20 minutes ago. What? Joe's expression changed. Is it still a step too late? Whitebeard frowned, knowing that he had missed the opportunity. However, he was not too disappointed, but looked at the prisoners in LV6 prison. Perceived Whitebeard's gaze. The prisoners who had a grudge against Whitebeard burst out laughing. Is that Fire Fist Ace your relative? Ha 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 ha, I heard that he will be executed soon, it's really happy. Whitebeard, you have today too. Die well, in this way, you will also experience the pain of the death of the crew and relatives, hip hop, ha ha. All kinds of crazy and harsh laughter resounded through the entire eternal hell. Asshole. Joe's was furious. Goo la la la. Bugs abandoned by the times can only live like roundworms in the eternal hell, losing their freedom and suffering, and now you can still laugh. Whitebeard was not angry, but laughed bravely. What did you say? These words seemed to sting everyone's heart, causing a group of prisoners to roar again and again. But before they finished speaking, they saw Whitebeard raising his fist and slamming it into the air. Boom! The strong vibration spread and swept all around. The prisoners who were still roaring were hit by the terrible shock and their bodies flew out. Boom! 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 The dull crash sounded constantly. The prisoner, who was extremely arrogant just now, was already lying on the ground with blood vomiting, constantly wailing. After struggling for a while and realizing that he could not stand up, the original arrogance disappeared without a trace. One by one looked at Whitebeard in horror. At this moment, they finally remembered. Whitebeard is also a pirate. And it's one of the pirates. The king, several times more cruel than them. If you continue to clamor, you might be shocked to death by Whitebeard. What a terrifying power! An abrupt voice sounded. Shiryu of Rain, hidden in the dark, appeared, looking shocked and fascinated at Whitebeard. The prisoners in eternal hell are all rebellious generations. But it only took Whitebeard for a while to make these prisoners too scared to speak. This means, this strength, it shocked him. Jailer. When Joz saw the person who appeared, his face changed, and he immediately blocked Whitebeard, and the light of the diamond climbed up his arm. The original guardian Shiryu of the Rain. Whitebeard looked at each other, and a strong breath erupted from his body, crushing away like a raging wave. Do you want to be my enemy? Boom. The terrible momentum raged. Yuji Shiryu was hit like this, the clothes on her body rustled, and her body stepped back, her face changed again and again. The previous self-confidence completely disappeared. Cold sweat slipped from the corner of his forehead, and his breathing became heavy. Although I know that Whitebeard is very strong. But he never thought that relying on hockey alone would give him a feeling of being invincible. Facing such a terrible hockey, I just feel like a small boat in the ocean of Wangyang. May be destroyed at any time. I am not malicious. Besides, I have been detained by Magellan before. I am no longer the chief of Impel Down. I only appeared to help you. Yuji Shiryu endured the panic in his heart and hurriedly spoke. He knew that if he didn't speak anymore, he might really be attacked. After speaking, he immediately took out the prison key he got from the jailer and handed it to Joz. Joz was taken aback. Unexpectedly, things will be reversed. But he reacted quickly, and after receiving the key, he quickly opened Jinbei's cell and rescued Jinbei. Papa Whitebeard. Jinbei came to Whitebeard with a look of excitement. It's okay. Whitebeard lowered his head and asked. I'm okay, but the Ace brothers have been taken to Marineford, but they haven't been away for a long time. We are chasing now, maybe we can catch up. Jinbei said hurriedly. That's too late. Whitebeard shook his head. 20 minutes is not long, but it is not short. And there is also a Warden Magellan outside. It is impossible to pursue him immediately. Knowing this, he is not struggling with this problem, but looking at Shiryu of Rain. Shiryu boy, what is your purpose for helping me? Leave here. Yuji Shiryu wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. Whitebeard puts too much pressure on him. It was big enough for him to understand that he might be killed by Whitebeard as long as he said one wrong sentence. So in the face of questions, he didn't dare to hide it. If you want to leave here, then follow me to Marineford. Whitebeard did not refuse. He came here to release all the prisoners and strengthen his combat power. Shiryu of Rain is quite strong, and it just happens to be able to help. After speaking, without giving the other party a chance to reply, he turned his head and looked at the prisoners. Do you want to leave? The prisoners who heard this looked at Whitebeard with wide-eyed eyes. Eternal Hell will have 10 places. Before I leave, I will take 10 people to Marineford. If you want to get out of this cage, let's fight as much as you want. Whitebeard said in a deep voice. When this word fell, everyone's eyes were red. Although many people here have enemies with Whitebeard. But in the face of the temptation of freedom, the so-called hatred becomes trivial. After a while, the screams rang through the entire Eternal Hell. The pungent smell of blood surrounds it. In just 10 minutes, Eternal Hell screamed and stopped, and Eternal Hell returned to his former calm. Joz, open the prison door, Whitebeard said. Yes. Joz replied loudly, opening the cell door. In the fight just now, most of the people were killed, and only a few people were still alive. These living people are the strong ones among the strong ones. For example, original Shichibukai Crocodile, Crescent Hunter, Catalina Deepung, Huge Battleship, Sanwan Wicked Wolf, Big Wine, Basque Chote, Evil King, Abaro Pai Salo. Plus the original Shichibukai Jinbei and the surrendered Rain Shiryu. In just a few moments, Whitebeard has a high-end combat power. Just throw these people into the top war. Even if everyone is embarrassed and doesn't try their best, they can still contain Marine's high-end combat power and create a chance for him to rescue Ace. Joes. Whitebeard looked around and spoke. Father. You go to other hells first, take the living prisoners away, then meet up with Beasta, I'll be there later. Yes, father. Joes nodded and turned away. After Joes's figure disappeared completely, Whitebeard looked back and walked to a cell with a big knife in his hand. There are dead bodies standing upright in this cell. But in the center, there was a bright red figure sitting. The figure was still chained, and it seemed that he didn't want to leave with Whitebeard. Long time no see. Ryder. Whitebeard walked in, a tall figure enveloped the bright red figure in the firelight. The Red Earl Barlaric Letterfield. One of the kings of the old age, one person can keep pace with Roger and Whitebeard. After Roger was executed, he fought against the Marshal Kong. After winning, his energy was exhausted and Garp took the opportunity to put him in prison and was locked into the 6th layer of Impel Down. In the original book, Ryder will take the opportunity to flee, looking for bat fruit. But Whitebeard, who is in desperate need of combat power, does not want such a master to leave under his nose. I didn't expect to meet in this situation. Newgate. Ryder, dressed in a bright red gentleman's uniform, opened his eyes and looked at the enemy and friend he had not seen for many years. Goo la la la, it's been a long time since no one called me by my name. Whitebeard looked up and laughed, and the hilt of the knife slammed heavily on the prison floor. Impel Down has been broken by me. Ryder. Come with me to Marineford. Newgate, if I were younger, maybe I would go to Marineford and have a fight with you. But now. I am old. Ryder slowly raised his head, revealing an old face under the faint firelight. The sharp and confident gaze back then was covered with muddy. In addition to that rotten body, it made him look like an old and injured lone wolf. As he said, if his body is still young, even without Whitebeard's invitation, he would go to Marineford to make a big fuss. But with the aging of the body, the aloof Ryder is no longer in the past, and has no courage to treat everything as nothing. Goo la la la, Whitebeard laughed, not disappointed. He seemed to have known that the other party would say something like this, if I give you bat fruit. Before coming, he knew that some prisoners were not easy to subdue. For example, the Red Earl in front of you. In the original book, after Ryder escaped from the underwater prison, he once gave up the faith in his heart and became crazy infatuated with youth. Want a person who has lost his faith to go to Marineford difficult. But he was prepared. Know that Ryder's greatest obsession is to restore youth. And the bat fruit is the key. What? How do you know? Ryder trembled, then raised his head abruptly, staring at Whitebeard. There was shock on his face. A pair of turbid eyes shrank into needles. Because of Whitebeard's words, he was shocked. He didn't even understand how Whitebeard knew he wanted bat fruit. That's right. After seeing Whitebeard's arrival, he had the idea of jailbreaking. And made up his mind, once he left the underwater prison, he would look for the bat fruit that can restore his youth, in order to restore his youth. But he never expected it. Whitebeard explained his thoughts with a single word. While this made him suspicious, it also caused a trace of panic. I know where the bat fruit of the Eudemon species is, and I have the ability to get the fruit. Ryder. Do you understand what I mean? Whitebeard's tone became low. Ryder fell silent. He is the aloof Ryder. I hate to ally with people without any threats. Even in the face of death, he will not let go of his pride. But that's what happened when I was young. Now he is old. Having already lost his faith, the only obsession in his heart is to restore his youth. So, he couldn't refuse Whitebeard's request. Dang dang, the sound of broken chains sounded. Ryder stood up slowly, looking at Whitebeard with a complicated expression. You won. Newgate. Goo la la la. Whitebeard burst out laughing when he heard this, then turned to look at a cell next to him. World, how long are you going to pretend to be dead? When this word fell, everyone looked at it. I saw a corpse lying in the cell next door. On the front side of the corpse, there was a huge piece of ice, and a person was being frozen in the ice. Hey, world? Is this old guy still alive? Crocodile lit a cigar and sneered, looking at the frozen world. He didn't die so easily. Whitebeard Kaido. Then he raised his fist violently and slammed it down into the air. Boom. There was a loud roar. The air was directly smashed by a punch, and the fierce concussive force spread, slamming against the ice block. Just hearing a click, the ice broke. The world frozen inside also fell heavily to the ground. However, the other party did not stand up, but lay on the ground without moving, as if already dead. Father, is he really alive? Jinbei couldn't help asking. Others also showed suspicion when they heard it, because no matter how they looked at it, the person in front of him was already dead and couldn't die anymore. World. When will you pretend to be dead? Whitebeard didn't show mercy this time. The muscles of the arms swelled, and under the force of the force, they smashed into the air fiercely. Boom. A roar of terror. The air was directly smashed to pieces. The strong shock wave slammed into World lying on the ground like a raging wave. Whitebeard, are you trying to kill me? World, who was still pretending to be dead, suddenly jumped up in shock. Without thinking, he raised his arms and crossed them in front of him. At the same time, armament hockey was all over the body. Boom. The two collided, producing a huge roar. Then, under everyone's shocked gaze, the armament hockey's world was covered with shockwaves and flew out. After hitting the iron bars of the cell, he made a loud noise, and then fell to the ground. Ahem, Whitebeard, you bastard. World coughed violently. But the gaze at Whitebeard was full of shock and confusion. Because he can't figure it out. Why does Whitebeard, who is about the same age as himself, still has this kind of strength? Just like the punch just now, Hockey couldn't resist even his arms spread all over his body. That powerful and terrifying vibration. Let him have the feeling of facing Whitebeard in his prime. This old guy is in his 70s this year, right? Speaking logically, like me, my body has declined to a certain extent, but why is there such strength? A look of surprise appeared in World's eyes. After thinking for a long time, he, who really didn't understand, suddenly felt that Whitebeard was covered with a layer of mystery. This color actually made him feel a little scared. My body hasn't recovered yet, so don't provoke Whitebeard for the time being. World decided to be honest. If you provoke the other party's dissatisfaction, come and punch yourself again. With your current state, I am afraid you will be beaten to vomit blood. Goo la la la, World, come to Marineford with me. Whitebeard laughed loudly, as if he didn't fly him at all. Humph. I wanted to settle accounts with those bastards, Marine. World snorted. Although I don't want to go to Marineford. But he, who feels that Whitebeard is strong, knows that he can't refuse. However, as one of the strong men of the old age, he would not say this kind of thing, but continued to be hard-headed. It seems to say to everyone. I went to Marineford because I was unhappy with Marine, not because I was afraid of Whitebeard. Seeing World agree, Whitebeard nodded. Ask Jinbei to open World's cell and release the opponent. No wonder the old man didn't have any worries after he learned that the Ace brothers had been escorted ahead of time. It turned out that he was already prepared. Jinbei was full of admiration. I am even more convinced of Whitebeard's plan. If he were Whitebeard, he would never have thought of this idea. Attack Impel down first, release the prisoner, and then use the prisoner's power to rescue Ace. Look at these powerful prisoners. There is more confidence in rescuing Ace. Dang dang, just as Jinbei exclaimed, the sound of a chain collision sounded, and the silent eternal hell seemed very harsh. Everyone was alarmed by this sound. Unexpectedly, besides them, there are still people alive. Whitebeard. Old man, a deep voice came. Accompanied by the clanging of chains, a tall figure stood up from the many corpses in a cell and came to the iron railing of the cell. Because of the dim firelight, people couldn't see this person clearly. What? Bullet, as a member of the Roger crew, do you want to go to Marineford and have a fight with me? Whitebeard rolled his head slightly and looked at the figure in the cell. Bullet? It's him? He is still alive? Crocodile and others were startled, and they became vigilant. Douglas Bullet. Nicknamed, Heir of the Devil, known as the successor of the Ghost, he was once a member of the Roger Pirates group. His strength is extremely powerful. Even the companions of the Roger Pirates group call him a monster. Under everyone's gaze, Bullet fell silent. It took a long time before people heard the sound of the chain breaking. The originally closed prison door also exploded with a loud noise, and thick smoke billowed and enveloped the surroundings. Out. A solemn color appeared on Jinbei's face. Then a figure came out in the smoke and dust. When it was fully revealed, it was discovered that it was a middle-aged man with long blonde hair, topless naked, and black pants on his lower body. Want me to go to Marineford? Bullet raised his head fiercely, staring directly at Whitebeard like a blade, with a strong sense of war in his eyes. Then let me see if you have the same strength as you used to be. Boom. The strong conqueror's hockey vented out. The surrounding cells were hit by this momentum, and there was an instant creaking sound. The people present felt this breath, their breathing stagnated, and a solemn color appeared in their eyes. They found that Bullet was stronger than expected. This hockey alone is worthy of the name of a crew member of One Piece. Goo la la la, Bullet, it seems that you have forgotten the original pain. Whitebeard laughed. Roger Pirates and him are old rivals. As Roger's crew member, Bullet has naturally fought him, and more than once. In the sound of laughter, Conqueror's Haki rushed out violently. Two Haki collided in the air, and a strong hurricane was born invisibly, raging around. Kang dang. Kang dang. Kang dang. The door of the cell was blown and swayed violently, making a violent sound. As Haki exploded, the surroundings returned to calm. Is this the collision of the world's top powerhouses? It's really beyond imagination. The evil king was secretly frightened. This guy Bullet is even better than before. Crocodile dangling his cigar, his eyes flickered. But why does old Whitebeard still have such strength? Bullet has such a strong Haki, he is not surprised at all. Because the opponent is only in his 40s and is in his prime of life, his strength has reached its peak. But what about Whitebeard? This year is over 70 years old. In his opinion, Whitebeard was indeed great when he was young, and he is known as the strongest in the world. At this age, the state should decline. Haki fell to the top. But regardless of the vibration ability just now, or the current Conqueror's Haki, it all shows that Whitebeard is not weakened at all, and is still at its peak. How on earth did this happen? Crocodile whispered. The gaze at Whitebeard was full of incredible. In fact, it's not just him who thinks so. Ryder and World beside them also showed shock. That's right. Just shocked. Both of them are from the same era as Whitebeard. Those who are old know best the pain caused by physical aging. But when they got to Whitebeard, they found that Whitebeard didn't seem to have this problem at all. Obviously he was over 70 years old, and he was still as good as a man. This makes the two of them feel extremely incredible. Old man Whitebeard, you still have this kind of strength now. Bullet looked excited. Perhaps because of being too excited, the body began to tremble. I thought Roger was dead, and Whitebeard was very old. No one in this world could stop him. Unexpectedly, Whitebeard is still strong. Regardless of the vibration ability or Haki, it seems to be as shocking as yesterday. But he reacted quickly. In a roar filled with excitement, he rushed towards Whitebeard. During the sprint, his fist was raised, armament Haki covered it, and with a fist, the hitting air exploded. Goo la la la. Seeing the bullet coming, Whitebeard laughed and slammed the knife heavily on the ground. Bullet, if you lose, be my son. Then see if you are above me, Bullet yelled. The arm covered by armament Haki hit Whitebeard hard. The air was hit like this, making a series of sonic booms. In the face of such a powerful blow, Whitebeard did not evade at all, and even the ability of Shock Fruit was useless. Armament Haki also covers the arm. When Bullet's fist was about to hit him, he slammed a punch. Boom. The dull sound roared. The two banged fist to fist. The invisible airwaves centered on the fists and spread towards the surroundings. The ground beneath his feet could not withstand this kind of impact, so it exploded directly. Goo la la la, Bullet Kid, you want to challenge me, it's too early. Whitebeard smiled lowly. Speaking fiercely, armament Haki spreads his entire arm, and the force against the boom increases in vain. Boom. Bullet didn't notice for a while, and his body was beaten back several steps in a row. After stepping on the ground one by one, he could not stop. Bullet, who failed in the first collision, was not lost, but became too excited. Because he felt that feeling again, it's like facing Roger's pressure. This kind of pressure made him so excited that he couldn't help himself. Come again. There was another roar, and the body rushed away violently. Armament Haki's fists covering both hands, accompanied by a piercing sound, swung both fists vigorously. In the face of this attack, Whitebeard still has no ability to use it. Same as Bullet, only armament Haki is used. Boom, boom, boom. The two fisted fist to fist. A wave of air spread, and the door of the jailed cell kept swaying, making a banging sound. Monsters, all monsters. Crescent Hunter Dai Peng's forehead slipped cold sweat. I thought that the LV6 Hell prisoner himself was already very strong. But after seeing the collision between the two, he realized that there was still a long way to go between his strength and his true peak. That's natural. Crocodile sneered. Old Whitebeard is known as the strongest in the world, and the guy Bullet is a complete monster. Monster? But Whitebeard is not so easy to deal with. The corners of Ryder's mouth were curved. He doesn't know the specific strength of Bullet. But understand that if Whitebeard really stays at its peak, no matter how strong Bullet is, it can't be Whitebeard's opponent. Daddy will definitely win, Jinbei said in a deep voice. When he said this, he was not blindly worshipping. It's because Whitebeard is known as the strongest in the world. This name is enough to explain many problems. Fortunately, there was no enemy against Whitebeard at the time. Shiryu of Rain on the side was dripping with cold sweat. I feel how correct my decision was at that time. Otherwise, stop Whitebeard according to Magellan's orders. I am afraid that Whitebeard will kill him in a while. Boom. While several people were discussing, the fighting between the two sides continued. Whitebeard shook his fist violently. At its peak, even the bullet, which was infinitely close to One Piece, did not benefit from it. Instead, following Whitebeard's attack, he was forced to retreat. This farce should also end. Whitebeard punched Bullet back, then raised his right fist and slammed it into the air. Boom. The air splits directly. A strong shock swept across and hit Bullet. Before Bullet had time to use Armament Hockey's defense, he was shocked by the strong shock. The strong body hit the iron railing of the prison door, and then slid down. It's not over yet. Bullet quickly stood up and roared. This feeling of being completely suppressed made him both excited and angry. The excitement is because there are still such masters in the world, and it is worth surpassing him. The anger is that he is not strong enough and was suppressed by others. In the roar, he rushed out again, swept across by the iron fist covered by Armament Hockey, with a burst of air-breaking sound. Bullet Kid, you are not my opponent. Whitebeard's tone was low. Although Bullet claims to have infinitely close to the strength of One Piece. But that is in the case of using the ability of the combined fruit. Under the inability to use the ability, his own strength actually has a certain gap with the Emperor level. Speaking quickly to one side of the body, avoiding the attack. At the same time, his fists were raised and slammed down at Bullet's body. Boom. The air shattered. A terrible shock erupted. Cracks swept across Bullet's body. The opponent didn't even have time to defend, so he was thrown to the ground with a punch. As the power raged, the ground burst into pieces. What? Bullet received a heavy blow, his strong body trembled, blood sprayed out from his mouth, and then screamed. After being hit hard, he wanted to struggle to stand up. But it can't be done for a while. Punch. After Whitebeard was really serious, he only took a punch. Just hit Bullet down. You lose. Whitebeard looked down at Bullet as if looking down, shook his head after seeing the dissatisfied expression of the other party. No matter whether you are convinced or not, this battle is over. I still have important things to do. If you want to really challenge me, then let's wait until this matter is over. Woo. Bullet endured the pain on his body and stood up, panting hard. But he has no plans to continue. Because in a small prison, he could not use his abilities at all, nor could he maximize his strength. So he decided to stop temporarily and wait until he went out to fight Whitebeard. If he still loses, then he is willing to pay any price. Like becoming Whitebeard's son. If you want to continue to challenge me, then keep up. Whitebeard glanced at Bullet, then turned away with a group of people. This time Bullet did not refuse, but quickly followed. The group walked through the long prison corridor and came to the exit to the 5th floor of the extremely cold prison. But before the group of people took a step, they heard a chaotic sound of footsteps coming from a distance. Father, someone is coming, Jinbei whispered. Whitebeard nodded and looked up. Through the faint light of the fire, several figures were seen running from a distance. One of them yelled while running, expressing anxiety and excitement in their tone. Ace, I'm here to save you. An anxious and excited voice sounded in the silent eternal hell, which looked unusually harsh. Under Whitebeard's gaze, 3 figures came oncoming. The first to appear was a young man wearing a red jacket and a straw hat. The straw hat boy didn't seem to expect to meet people here. While stunned, he also stopped. But as I swept my eyes, my face changed when I saw Crocodile. Crocodile. Hey, it's you, the straw hat boy. Crocodile let out a smoke ring and sneered. Straw Hat Luffy? Jinbei on the side saw Luffy and remembered everything Ace had said in the prison. Is he the brother of Brother Ace? And he really made it to the 6th floor, eternal hell. There are other intruders, it's really new. World laughed. Unexpectedly, within a day, 2 groups of people broke into the 6th level of Impel Down, something that had never happened before. But is this kid an enemy? Or a friend? The corners of Ryder's mouth were curved. The palm has been quietly pressed on the hilt of the umbrella long sword. Damn it, the crocodile is here. And are they all accomplices of the crocodile? It seems that if you want to save Ace, you must defeat these people. Luffy didn't know who Whitebeard and his party were. However, after seeing Crocodile, he directly attributed Whitebeard and others as enemies. So he gritted his teeth and opened the second gear. As the skin turned red, steam rose from his body and rushed towards the group of people. When he aimed at the strong man with Whitebeard in the front and holding a big knife, he shouted immediately. Rubber pistol. The arm flicked vigorously, drawing out a trail of afterimages. But before he hit the brawny man, he saw that the other party raised his arm and punched him. Boom. There was a loud noise. The air seemed to be smashed by a punch, and the terrible shock burst out. Without giving Luffy a chance to react, this shocking force swept through and hit him hard. Wow! Luffy screamed, then flew out. After falling to the ground, his body slid for a long distance before he could stop. As the severe pain spread, he trembled all over. I wanted to struggle to stand up, but the power of the punch just now seemed beyond imagination. Even if his body was made of rubber, there was a sharp pain at this time. After struggling for a long time, he couldn't get up. Okay. So strong. He raised his head to look at Whitebeard, shocked on his face. Since going to sea, he has also encountered many opponents. One of them also defeated Shichibukai. Although those opponents are strong, but he has the power to fight. But the brawny Whitebeard in front of him couldn't stand up with just one punch. And look at this person's expression. The punch just now seemed to use no strength at all. Straw Hat Boy, are you okay? The two people who followed Luffy finally came and exclaimed when they saw Luffy's tragic situation. Have you encountered an enemy? The Revolutionary Army Ivankov with a big exploded head and a long face looked up. But I don't know, I was shocked at first glance. When he saw a figure with a crescent beard standing in front of him, holding a big knife, he screamed in surprise, and his squatting body jumped high. You. Ivankov pointed at Whitebeard, with an incredible expression on his face. Perhaps it was so surprised that after speaking for a long time, I didn't say a complete sentence. What's wrong? Imazuna also looked up when they came together. But after seeing Whitebeard, like Ivankov, he trembled in shock and couldn't say a word. Be careful, this guy is very strong. After struggling for a long time, Luffy finally stood up. He took a hard breath and stared at Whitebeard, steam rising from his body, as if he wanted to attack. Rubber. With a loud roar, he clenched his fists fiercely. But before he could attack, Ivankov jumped up and hit Luffy's head with a punch. The Straw Hat Boy, stop me. Luffy, who didn't check for a while, was knocked to the ground with a punch. Then he raised his head and looked at Ivankov dumbfounded, wondering why the opponent stopped him. At this time Jinbei woke up too, and hurriedly said, "You are the Straw Hat Luffy, hurry up and stop, we are not the enemy." Hey, the Straw Hat Boy, you are really the same as before, so impulsive no matter what you do. Crocodile sneered. Do you know who the person you just attacked was? Luffy was full of question marks. Sure enough, I was an idiot. Crocodile sneered at Luffy's confused look. At the same time, I was a little upset about why I lost to such a stupid boy in the first place. What did you say? Luffy glared at Crocodile dissatisfiedly. Is not it? You should be thankful that this old man is showing mercy, otherwise you are already dead with the punch just now. Crocodile spit out a smoke ring and laughed. A cadre of the Revolutionary Army, Ivankov. At this time, Whitebeard finally spoke and glanced at everyone, knowing that he had met Luffy and his party who had come to rescue Ace. I didn't expect that you would appear here. Ivankov took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Luffy on the side watched back and forth between Whitebeard and Ivankov, and finally couldn't help asking, who is he? The two people nearby almost fell to the ground when they heard this. Then I saw Ivankov grabbing Luffy's collar and constantly shaking the other person's body. Straw Hat Boy, don't you even know him? Luffy looked confused. In New World, there are 4 kings above all pirates, and one of them is known as the strongest in the world. Ivankov spoke in a deep voice, and then looked at Whitebeard very solemnly. And this person in front of me is the one known as the 4 Emperors Whitebeard. Whitebeard? Luffy's eyes widened, and he remembered everything Ace had said to him. He is just as famous as Shanks Whitebeard? It's also from Ace, father? Do not. It should be said that the redhead is as famous as him. Because Whitebeard was the super powerhouse of the famous New World long ago, and he has the same existence as the One Piece Roger. Ivankov corrected. The same existence as One Piece? No matter how big Luffy's heart is, he can't help but be shocked, knowing the meaning of these words. Straw Hat Kid. Seeing the two whispering, Whitebeard was not in the mood to waste time here. Ace has been taken to Marineford. If you want to save him, follow along. After speaking, without giving the other party time to react, he left with a group of people. Ace was taken away? Luffy woke up in shock. It seems we are all a step late, the Straw Hat Boy, as Whitebeard said. If you want to save Ace, you can only go to Marineford. But Marineford is the headquarters of Marine, and there are a lot of Marine. Ivankov looked serious, but before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Luffy. No matter where I go, I will save Ace. Speaking to keep up with Whitebeard quickly. Looking at the passing group of people, Ivankov was a little emotional. Who would have thought that Whitebeard did not go to Marineford immediately, but came to impel down and took away a lot of prisoners? With these powers, Boy Ace may really be rescued, but it's not necessarily true. Let's hurry up and keep up, Imazuna said with a glass of red wine. Ivankov nodded and followed quickly. Through the passage, a group of people passed through several layers of prisons and returned to the maritime prison. At this time, Joz was summoning the prisoners who were still alive, preparing to meet with Beasta, but after seeing Whitebeard, he immediately greeted him. Father, has the call been completed? Whitebeard glanced around and asked. The prisoners who are still alive are here. Joz nodded. Then keep up. Whitebeard quickly rushed towards Impel Down. A lot of work has been spent on convening the prisoners, and now we must rush to Marineford, otherwise we will miss the time. Whitebeard. And besides him, there are Ryder, World, Sand Crocodile and Jinbei. Are these guys really going to Marineford to make a fuss? Buggy hiding behind covered her face, shaking all over. I thought I could escape in the chaos, but I didn't expect that things seemed to get worse. Once these prisoners go out, there will definitely be major problems. But when he saw everyone gone, he could only follow with a bitter face. Impel Down outside. The battle between Beasta and Magellan has reached a fever pitch. The crescent sword light flashed across, cutting the ground in the seawater apart, turning it into an ultimate murderous intent and slashing towards Magellan. And Magellan was not to be outdone, and the venom poured out of his body and hit it hard. Boom, boom, boom. As Jianmang and Venom raged, the two were panting. But soon, they heard the movement, stopped the movement in their hands, and turned their heads to look. Then I saw Whitebeard walking out with a bunch of prisoners. What? Magellan's eyes shrank into needle-like awns. As he glanced around, cold sweat slipped from the corner of his forehead. The original Shichibukai Jinbei, the original Shichibukai Crocodile, the Red Earl Rider, World Destroyer World, the heir of the Devil Bullet, the Crescent Hunter Dai Peng, the huge battleship Wolf, the Big Wine Joet, the evil King Pizarro. There are revolutionaries Ivankov, Imazuna, and Luffy, the Straw Hat he believes is dead. The most vicious prisoner held in Impel Down. All appeared in front of him at this time, and this is not all. He also saw Shiryu of the former guard, Naguru, in the crowd. Shiryu. Magellan snarled, with a furious look on his face. As the Marine General, you are in the same stratagem with this group of prisoners. This is not a confession. Yuji Shiryu grinned, eyes full of jokes. Don't forget, I was a prisoner. When the words fell, Magellan trembled. He knew he had made a fatal mistake. That was the mistake of believing in the mob of Shiryu of Rain, so that all the prisoners in eternal hell ran out. Father. Beasta took the opportunity to put away the sword and ran to Whitebeard, but after watching for a while, he did not see Ace's figure. Daddy, Ace has been taken to Marineford. Whitebeard Kaido. What? Beasta's face changed. Hurry up and end the battle and leave here immediately. Whitebeard clenched his fist and turned his eyes to Magellan not far away. Not good. Magellan's face changed drastically. Now that all the prisoners ran out, Shiryu of Rain rebelled, and the other jailers were dealt with again. Isolated and helpless, he fell into a desperate situation. But instead of giving up, he roared. Poison Giant Soldier Hell's Judgment. The bright red venom soared into the sky, but in an instant it turned into a skeleton giant with two horns, and shot again at the group of people. Boy Magellan. Whitebeard's eyes were sharp, his hands crossed his chest, and then he let out a low growl. Give me. Get out of the way. Huh. Flicked his arms fiercely. The full burst of power in the peak state blasted his fists into the air. The air seemed to be shattered, and cracks appeared, quickly spreading around. Boom. Air, earth, ocean. At this moment, everything that can be seen shakes violently. The 10,000-foot high waves lifted up, and the ground burst like an earth dragon overturned, forming a huge crack. The terrible shock force surged and hit the poisonous skeleton. Boom. The skull burst like a balloon. The sky was full of venom, but it was isolated by the force of the shock. And as the concussion spread, Magellan was also in shock, and was hit and flew out, setting it on the city wall. When the vibration disappears completely, the waves turned into heavy rain and fell back into the sea, while Magellan fell to the ground with blood on his face and passed out completely. One strike. Whitebeard only took one blow. Impel Down the Warden Magellan defeat. Seeing this, everyone present changed their colors. Okay. So awesome. Luffy stammered and looked at Magellan, who had fainted, shocked in his heart. Just yesterday, he played against Magellan, and it was solved instantly by the other party. But this powerful enemy was defeated by Whitebeard. This made him thoroughly feel the strength of being known as the strongest man in the world. Of course, Ivankov was not surprised. Whitebeard is the king who existed in the old days. Although Magellan's strength is good, it is a certain distance from Whitebeard. Hey, Daddy claims to be the strongest in the world, how could Magellan be an opponent? Jose and Beasta looked at each other, their faces full of pride. Really? Whitebeard, your strength is still at its peak. Ryder murmured. Magellan said that being strong is not very strong, at least not as good as Marine Admiral. But if it is weak, it is definitely not weak, otherwise it will not be sent to guard Impel Down. If you change him to Magellan, even if you have the confidence to win, it won't be so easy. But here is Whitebeard, it only took one blow. One strike. It will defeat Magellan, known as the Iron Wall. While this shocked him deeply, it was also completely certain that Whitebeard's strength had not declined. You said. What method did Whitebeard use to maintain his peak strength? World asked fiercely. Do not know. Ryder shook his head. His knowledge is also extraordinary, but I don't understand why Whitebeard is in his 70s. Old Whitebeard. Bullet on the side was full of excitement. Since Roger's death, he has been confused and completely lost his goal. Now that Whitebeard is still strong, he has found someone who wants to surpass. If it is not a condition, it is not allowed, he will definitely challenge Whitebeard. When everyone was shocked, a voice came from Whitebeard's ear. Looking up, he saw a card that only he could see, appearing in front of him. The second card. Whitebeard's eyes narrowed. He was reborn as Whitebeard, and at the same time bound a card system. But after getting the newbie gift pack card, I never got another card. Even if 23 warships were destroyed with one blow, and the prisoners who crushed eternal hell. In other words, the prerequisite for defeating an opponent to obtain a card is that the opponent has a certain strength and is still in a hostile state. Ordinary battles and defeating some weak enemies will not drop cards at all? Whitebeard's eyes flashed. For the law of card falling, I have a general understanding. Thinking of picking up the card, he glanced at it. Double combat power. Use this card to gain double combat power based on yourself, for 3 minutes. Double strength card. Although I was happy in my heart, it didn't show it on my face. This card is very useful for now. Although the duration is only 3 minutes, 3 minutes can already do a lot. Father, there is news from Marco. At this moment, the phone worm in Beasta's hand rang, and when he saw this, he hurried over. Whitebeard nodded and took the phone worm. Marco. Father, we have bypassed the gate of justice and arrived at Marineford. Are we going to launch an assault now? There was a voice on the phone. You are waiting at the bottom of the sea. As for when to launch an assault, wait for my notice. Whitebeard Kaido. They are still impelled down, and if Marco is allowed to attack, they are definitely not Marine's opponents. After they arrive at Marineford, it will not be too late to attack. Clear. Marco replied and then hung up. Whitebeard also put away the phone worm and strode towards the mobile. Others see this and quickly keep up. But before the group of people boarded the ship, they heard the sound of a crash. Everyone looked up and found a 3-masted sailing ship with the flag of 3 skeletons rushing from a distance. The sailboat seemed to be out of control and slammed into the port of Impel Down. Boom. There was a loud noise. As the smoke billowed, the sight was blocked. After the smoke dissipated, a cough and anger sounded. Damn it, how could a huge wave suddenly appear? Fortunately, not far from Impel Down, otherwise we will be buried under the sea. Hip hop ha ha, although we have encountered some changes, we still arrived here, let's get ashore. Several voices came. Under the gaze of Whitebeard and others, several people walked out of the smoke. The leader is a middle-aged man. The man has a rough appearance, thick hair on the body, and under the fluffy hair is a big mouth with a few teeth missing. At this time, the man was walking with his mouth wide open, and he looked not only happy, but also extremely arrogant. The man's name is Marshall D. Teach, known as Blackbeard. The original crew of the Whitebeard pirates killed their companions for dark fruit, and then defeated Ace, forcing Ace to be arrested. Is the culprit of this war. The reason why I came to Impel Down is to select crew members from Impel Down and enhance my strength. When I passed the gate of justice just now, there was a wave of water on the surface of the sea inexplicably. The unlucky group of people almost overturned the ship and the people, and it took a lot of work before they crashed into the port of Impel Down without any risk. Hip hop haha. Sengoku has summoned all marine forces to Marineford. Even if we make a big fuss in Impel Down, there will be no reinforcements to come in support. Blackbeard was proud. He had already thought about it, as long as he gathered a strong crew, he would immediately go to Marineford to take advantage of the fisherman's profit. At that time, he will be the biggest winner of this war. Ship. Captain. Just when Blackbeard was complacent about his strategy, Raffet swallowed and pulled Blackbeard's sleeve, his arm tremblingly pointed to the side. You. Look there. What? Blackbeard looked suspiciously. Just now, because of the waves and collisions, they did not see clearly that there was another ship beside the harbor. Now that the smoke has disappeared, everything in the port has become clear. And Blackbeard also saw that beside his own ship, there was still a huge sailing ship docked like a whale. More importantly, this ship is very familiar to him. Moby Dick? Blackbeard's eyes widened, then his head tremblingly turned. After seeing the tall figure with a crescent moon beard, the whole person froze in place. The originally contented face was instantly filled with shock. His trembling hands also hugged his head, screaming in disbelief. Whitebeard. Papa. Blackbeard held his head in his hands, his face filled with disbelief. Looking at the familiar figure in front of me, a trace of fear spread from the bottom of my heart, and then went straight to the brain. Perhaps it is because of too much fear. The original steady footsteps backed up for a while, and fell to the ground badly. He never dreamed that he would meet Whitebeard in Impel Down, and he would meet him in person. Thinking back to Whitebeard's attitude towards him, he couldn't help being scared. Understand that he who killed his companion will never be forgiven. Boat. Captain, what should I do now? Rafit was dripping with cold sweat. If it is someone else, he still has the courage to fight. But this person is Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world, the king of the old age who is comparable to the One Piece King Roger. In the face of such a powerful opponent, he simply did not have the courage to fight. And more importantly, there was more than one Whitebeard, and a lot of masters followed behind him. Among them, he knew more than one. Confronting with their current strength as completely looking for death. Run. Blackbeard awakened in a shocked spirit, and yelled, "Everyone, run." He is not a fool, he can even be said to be an extremely smart person. From winning Dark Fruit, becoming Shichibukai, and then being promoted to the new 4 emperors, you can know the cunning and cleverness of Blackbeard from this. So he is clear and sober. Knowing that he was unharmed against Whitebeard, even if he had the Dark Fruit ability, there would be only a dead end. Only by running, there may be a silver lining. Damn. Why did Dad show up here? Didn't he go to Marineford? Blackbeard's face was full of fear. I don't understand why there are loopholes in my plan. Of course, none of this matters anymore. The important thing is to run quickly. Hurry up and leave Impel Down, stay away from that man. Captain, wait for us. The other crew members were stunned, and they didn't expect Blackbeard to be so stunned, and ran away as soon as they saw Whitebeard. But he reacted immediately and quickly followed up. It's Teach. When a group of people arrived in a hurry and fled in a hurry, Whitebeard and others woke up. When Joz saw Blackbeard, he shouted in anger. I didn't expect to meet this traitor here. Beasta's eyes were full of killing intent. Why was Ace caught, and why did the Whitebeard pirates go to war with Marine? All of this comes from Blackbeard. At this time, the culprit was right in front of him, letting his killing intent reach its peak. Blackbeard. Crocodile sneered with a cigar in his mouth, and at the same time a flash of disdain flashed in his eyes, but I was too courageous, I was scared to flee. It's him. Luffy on the side clenched his fists. He knows Blackbeard, but I didn't expect that the other party was Blackbeard who caused Ace to be arrested. The anger is rising in my heart, I can't wait to beat it up. Teach. Whitebeard spoke in a low voice, looking at Blackbeard who was fleeing in embarrassment. Without any hesitation, he raised his arm and punched the air hard. Give me. Stay. Boom. A loud noise. The air produced cracks and horrible shocks erupted. The vibrating ball of light crushed the ground, rushed towards Blackbeard, and exploded violently. Boom. The fleeing Blackbeard group only felt the ground tremble, and then found that the ground collapsed and the whole person fell. Thick smoke billowed and enveloped that direction. It took a long time before a cough came. Ahem. It's really not merciful at all. Blackbeard's figure walked out of the smoke and dust. The original flustered face had been replaced by a hideous face. After the blow just now, he already knew, I can't escape at all. The only way to survive now is to defeat Whitebeard. Wanting to understand this, he immediately strengthened his faith and prepared to fight Whitebeard. Asshole. You killed Sachi, you still want Dad to be merciful. Joz heard the yelling, his face was full of anger. Teach, you must die today. Beasta also drew out the long sword, and a fierce killing intent filled the surroundings. Of all people, you are the only one who is not worthy of being my son. Teach. Whitebeard smashed the knife on the ground heavily, and his voice became extremely low. You violated the only iron rule on my ship, killed your companion. I want to take off your idiot's head and give Sachi's spirit in the sky an explanation. The words fell, and the murderous intent swept across. Under this strong killing intent, the surrounding temperature seemed to drop more than 10 degrees, causing everyone to tremble. Old Whitebeard is angry. Crocodile, who was standing next to Whitebeard, only felt the pressure increased, and cold sweat slipped from his forehead. This is the killing intent displayed by the strongest man in the world when he is angry. Even if there is no action, it is shocking. Rain Shiryu's heart beats. Under the influence of the overwhelming killing intent, he felt stiffness in his limbs. Valorolo, to make Whitebeard so angry, it seems that this guy really offended him. There was a gloating look in World's eyes. At the same age as Whitebeard, he knew how terrifying Whitebeard was after his anger. So in his eyes, Blackbeard was already dead. Vengeance for Sachi. Beasta swung his long sword, trying to shoot, but before he took any steps, he was blocked by Whitebeard. Father? Beasta looked suspiciously. No one is allowed to shoot. Whitebeard's tone was low and harsh, and his eyes stared at Blackbeard like blades. Teach. Confess to Sachi in hell. Stabbed. Sword swing. A stab containing the power of shock turned into the most terrifying blow. The earth was smashed by a single slash, and countless fragments splashed, making a rumble sound. In the blink of an eye, the shock rushed to Blackbeard. It seems to want to tear the other party to pieces. Boom. There was a roar and smoke billowed. But people soon discovered that Whitebeard's supreme shock power was slowly disappearing, as if absorbed by something. When the smoke cleared, Blackbeard's figure appeared. In the previous hit, the opponent was unscathed. Hip hop ha ha. Do you think I'm the same me before? Blackbeard raised his head and laughed triumphantly, and then looked at Whitebeard proudly. Daddy. You too underestimated me. The words fell, and the black gas rose from the body, burning like a flame. What is this? A look of astonishment appeared on Luffy's face. Dark Fruit's ability. Joes and Beasta looked solemn, and at the same time became vigilant. Father. Did you see it? This is my current strength. A trace of drunkenness flashed in Blackbeard's eyes. Speaking and slapped his hands to the ground, the black gas spread like a tide, rushing to Whitebeard quickly. It only took a while to submerge the surrounding area. Secret Point Road. Blackbeard spit out 3 words. The black gas soared because of this, turned into a round of black Uzumaki, and then exploded violently. This is the ability I got when I killed Sachi. Ace was also defeated by this ability and was captured by Marine, so try it. In the words, the surroundings began to sink. Some broken stones were directly swallowed by black gas. Blackbeard, who witnessed all this, was even more intoxicated on his face. This intoxication even made him forget that the person he was facing was Whitebeard, and he spoke a series of proud words. Saki is dead, and Ace will die too, father. I once respected and admired you from the bottom of my heart. But you are old, your era has passed, and the name of the next era will be Blackbeard. Hip hop ha ha. Blackbeard raised his head and laughed, his face filled with delight. At this moment, he was completely lost in the power of Dark Fruit. Inexplicable and absurd self-confidence was born in his heart, and felt that he could defeat Whitebeard. Asshole. Beasta was furious. Does this idiot really think he is the opponent of the old man? Joes clenched his fists. Had it not been for Whitebeard had just said that he was not allowed to shoot, he would have rushed forward. Hey, where does this guy's confidence come from? Crocodile, with his cigar in his mouth, sneered somewhat puzzledly. Just now, Blackbeard was frightened and fled. But after using Dark Fruit's ability, he became so arrogant and even dared to satirize Whitebeard. More arrogantly, the next era is called Blackbeard. Poor worm lost in power. Bullet is extremely disdainful. He knew why Blackbeard had this contrast. The fundamental reason is that he is too confident in his own abilities, and the arrogance in his heart completely covers up the panic in his heart, so much so. But in his opinion, Blackbeard is just an idiot whose eyes are lost by his ability. Teach. Whitebeard looked sharp, raised his fist, and slammed it down in the low voice. Boom. The force of the shock spread rapidly. But Blackbeard didn't look flustered at all, instead he looked confident. It's useless. In front of my ability, everything will become nothingness. He raised his arm covered in black gas and rushed towards Whitebeard. As the darkness erupts, it will be swallowed by shocks. Seeing that he took the blow from Whitebeard, Blackbeard swelled completely, and this swelling made him speak for nothing. Hip hop ha ha. Did you see it, Daddy? This is my current ability. Even Devil Fruit's ability can be absorbed and made it incapacitated. In other words, you can no longer cause an earthquake. When Whitebeard heard this, the expression on his face did not fluctuate, but attacked again. The ball of light appeared on the fist, and then smashed down. But as Blackbeard raised his arm, the black gas spread, and the power of the vibration disappeared again. It's useless, Daddy. Blackbeard laughed, saying that there was a flash of madness in his eyes, raised another fist, and smashed it at Whitebeard's stomach. Yes. As long as I beat the old man here, then I don't have to go to Marineford to get the shock fruit ability. This thought emerged, making him hideous. The power of blasting a fist has also become stronger. But the fist hadn't touched Whitebeard. A low and murderous voice exploded from his ears. Teach. Senran's voice sounded. Blackbeard looked up fiercely, but saw a pair of extremely sharp eyes and a palm all over armament hockey. You who are addicted to the power of fruits have become so stupid. Snapped. Grab the palm. Under Blackbeard's stunned gaze, Whitebeard actually grabbed Blackbeard's neck directly. With one effort, lift the opponent high. Sentimentally stared at each other. Feeling the cold eyesight, Blackbeard was in a state of arrogance, and he was awakened by a violent spirit. At this moment, he remembered. This person in front of me is Whitebeard. The strongest man in the world. Just now he actually wanted to kill the opponent and snatch the opponent's abilities. Looking at that Senran face, the originally suppressed fear reappeared in his heart, making him tremble all over. His face became distorted because of fear. The body was shaking constantly, completely losing resistance. Old Daddy. Forgive me. Blackbeard spoke hard, perhaps because he was too scared, and his voice was full of panic and became extremely shrill. But before he could finish speaking, he saw Whitebeard raise his fist. Teach. Go to hell to repent. Boom. The explosion roared. The force of the shock erupted like a raging wave and hit Blackbeard's head hard. The terrible power raged, and blasted Blackbeard out, spraying blood all over the sky, and then smashing to the ground. Quiet. There was silence all around. Everyone looked at this scene in shock. Unexpectedly, Blackbeard, who was so arrogant just now, would be blown away by Whitebeard, without even the basic ability to resist. A group of people watched this scene blankly. Everyone had a look of astonishment and shock on their faces. Blackbeard, who was clamoring for invincibility just now, was directly hit by a punch and flew out. This huge contrast made people unresponsive for a while. Blackbeard just lost? Ivankov covered his big face and screamed exaggeratedly. From the fight to the end, it only takes a few minutes. This is also too fast, so strong. Luffy clenched his fist tightly. It was the first time he saw such a powerful existence after going to sea for so long. No matter who the opponent is, it seems that it can be solved with just one or two punches. Whitebeard in anger is really terrible, Ryder chuckled. But he was not too surprised. After all, he is a strong man in the same era as Whitebeard, knowing how strong Whitebeard is in his peak state. Hey, that idiot Blackbeard forgot. In addition to the ability of shock fruit, old Whitebeard, hockey is also very good. Kroklar sneered. Saki and Ace's revenge can finally be reported today. Joes laughed, feeling all the anger in his heart vented at this moment. Yes. Beasta nodded and looked at Whitebeard's gaze, even more respectful. Captain. Blackbeard's crew woke up at this moment. Looking at Blackbeard, who was blown out, an anxious look appeared on his face. They and Blackbeard are both prosperous and ruined. If Blackbeard dies, they will suffer too. Do it. Rafit yelled and wanted to shoot. But Joz, Beasta and Jinbei blocked the front. That's Dad's battle, you don't want to intervene. Beasta drew out his long sword, with a cold killing intent in his eyes. Speaking of which, these crew members of Blackbeard were also the chief culprits of this war. Regarding the enemy, he never thought of letting it go. Papa Whitebeard has a great favor to Murlocs, and Papa's enemy is also my enemy. Jinbei took a karate pose, with a very firm tone. Damn it. Rafit and others' complexions changed drastically, knowing that they could not support the captain. And not only is it unable to support it, but it is also possible to fold it in. Because these three people are the former Shichibukai Jinbei and the captain of the Whitebeard pirates. Not only are everyone not weaker than them, but they may also be stronger than them. Do it. Beasta drank. The long swords in his hands were crossed and his arms swung vigorously. Stabbed. The harsh sound exploded. The sharp sword light appeared like lightning, and the cold murderous intent passed over the Blackbeard crew, making several people's hair terrified. Murloc karate. Jinbei on the side also shot immediately, slamming his right palm. The bastard who caused Ace to be caught, I will never let it go easily. Joes roared, the light of the diamond climbed up his arms, and as his feet crushed the ground, his body rushed out. Boom. 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 The battle between the crew started. The power raged, breaking the ground to pieces. At this time, Blackbeard, who was blown out by a punch, also got up with blood on his face. He clutched his head and staggered, seeming to fall down at any time. Hey, You can stand up so quickly under this kind of attack, just like a straw hat boy. Crocodile sneered. It's a bit of strength. Ryder smiled. If someone else was hit by Whitebeard, he would have fainted long ago. Just like Magellan just now, he lost his fighting ability. But Blackbeard was able to stand up, not to mention whether the opponent was better than Magellan, but to say that the ability to resist beatings was definitely above Magellan. How about standing up? The weak are the weak after all. Even if they stand up again, they will only lose their victory later, and they will not escape the fate of death. Bullet showed disdain. In his opinion, there is no difference between dying earlier and dying later. Without being able to fight Whitebeard, Blackbeard's struggle is nothing more than a useless resistance from the weak. After several people talked, Blackbeard was completely awake. But before he could make any moves, he saw a tall figure standing in front of him. Look up. What I saw was a pair of sharp eyes. Old Daddy. A look of fear flashed in Blackbeard's eyes. The punch just now made him completely awake. Understand that even if he has the dark fruit ability, he is not his opponent. Teach. Whitebeard's voice was extremely low, and his tall body completely covered Blackbeard's figure under the sunlight. Make Blackbeard look like a wounded cub, fragile, and powerless. Old Papa. Forgive me. Blackbeard smiled more ugly than crying, begging Whitebeard to let himself go. I was wrong. I shouldn't kill Sachi, let alone act on Ace. Please give me a chance to change it. He was really scared. Fear that Whitebeard would do it to himself. I am afraid that my ambitions and dreams have not been realized, and I will die here. Facing the fear of death, he was struggling. Hope to continue the life that is about to die through pleading. Pity. Useless. Whitebeard didn't look at the other person more, but grabbed his arm violently, his tone stubbornly and decisively. I don't have a son who harmed my partner. Snapped. He lifted Blackbeard. With the force of the arm, throw the opponent out. At the same time, the right hand shook, and the broad knife was pulled out with a violent sound of breaking through the air, and then slashed towards the falling Blackbeard. Stabbed. The blood sprayed and fell like raindrops. A huge cut was cut in front of Blackbeard, causing him to scream and fall to the ground fiercely. Then he clutched his chest and kept wailing. Whitebeard turned a deaf ear to this scream and walked step by step. When he came to Blackbeard's side, the hilt of the big knife hit the opponent's palm heavily. At the same time, raising his fist, a ball of light appeared, smashing down fiercely. It's over. Teach. Father, stop. I'm your son, are you really going to kill me? Blackbeard yelled in horror. But unfortunately, Whitebeard was not moved at all. The light group containing the power of shock slammed down. My ambitions and dreams have not been realized, how can I die here? Blackbeard's pupils shrank into needle-like ridges. Under the threat of death, the body's strength poured out. Liberation. A stern roar. Black gas rose up from the body. Immediately afterwards, various rubble emerged from the gas and slammed into Whitebeard. Dark fruit can not only swallow everything like a black hole. It can release the swallowed things even more. And these rubbles were what Blackbeard had just swallowed with the dark cavern road. A large amount of rubble was released, seeming to want to stop Whitebeard's attack. But Whitebeard ignored it. The fist still falls. Boom. There was a loud noise. A strong vibration erupted, and the ground was as fragile as tofu, which exploded directly, and countless debris splashed around. And Blackbeard also flew out with this blow, smashing to the ground fiercely. Blood oozes from the body, staining the ground red. Has it ended? World said as he watched Blackbeard lying motionless on the ground. No. Not yet. Ryder's eyes flashed. Everyone listened to this. Blackbeard, who was lying on the ground, was trembling, apparently not dead. Hey. Crocodile sneered with his cigar in his mouth and glanced at Luffy at the same time. It's really a member of the D family. It really has the same characteristics when it comes to anti-beating. When he faced Luffy, it was like this. No matter how you attack, the opponent will stand up again and again like Xiaoqiang. This made him wonder whether the two had cockroach genes. To live is just to suffer more sins. Bullet showed disdain. The others nodded after hearing it, and their gazes at Blackbeard were full of mockery and pity. There was a heavy gasp. Blackbeard, who was badly injured, struggled to his knees on the ground. Looking at the blood on the ground, feeling the temperature in it, a trace of ecstasy appeared on his face. He is not dead. He was still alive and did not die because of it. As if the joy of rebirth filled his mind, he almost laughed wildly. But he didn't have time to be happy. A deep voice rang from my ears. Teach. The sound of calm footsteps came, and the light above his head suddenly became dim, and a tall figure with a crescent beard covering his whole body. Blackbeard, who was still ecstatic, trembled suddenly. He finally remembered. Now is not the time to be happy. Because Whitebeard is on the side, and he has a strong killing intent on himself. In fear and panic, he turned his head stiffly. The face that made him desperate appeared again. Old Daddy. Forgive me. Blackbeard's body was shaking constantly, perhaps because he was too scared. His voice became sharp. But he was greeted with a punch. Boom. There was a loud noise. The light ball containing the shocking power hit Blackbeard's face fiercely. The ground was crumbling, and Blackbeard's body was crushed by the force, sinking deep into the earth. What? A scream came from Blackbeard's mouth, and the blood was spraying continuously. That's horrible. Shiryu of Rain is dripping with cold sweat. Once again, I was grateful that I didn't fight Whitebeard, otherwise I wouldn't end up any better than Blackbeard. Too cruel. Crescent Hunter Dai Peng whispered. I thought I was called the most ferocious female prisoner, which was cruel enough. But after seeing Whitebeard sling Blackbeard, he realized that he was a kind little sheep. This is the fate of killing a companion. Beasta and Joz didn't have any mercy, but their hearts were smooth. Blackbeard is a rebel. They will not show any mercy to the rebels. Boom. Whitebeard's attack continued. It has to be said that the anti-beating ability of the D family is indeed strong. Blackbeard, who has been subjected to 3 consecutive shock attacks, has not yet died, just like Shao Qiang of immune to death. Certainly, it is impossible for the opponent to be so badly injured. The scarred Blackbeard was looking at Whitebeard desperately at this time, knowing that without anyone helping him, he would definitely die. I haven't found One Piece yet, how can the journey end like this? Blackbeard screamed. He wants to win the big secret treasure and become the man of One Piece. For this ambition, he did not hesitate to forbear for more than 20 years, and finally got the dark fruit he dreamed of. Then just win the ability of shock fruit. He will become the strongest in the world. Now that there is only one step left from his ambitions and dreams, how can he die willingly? One Piece? Whitebeard looked at the dying Blackbeard indifferently, and uttered the desperate words. The person Roger is waiting for is definitely not you. Teach. You don't have the potential to be a king. When Blackbeard heard this, his eyes widened. Then he saw the light ball containing the shocking power, and hit his head fiercely. Boom. The ground bursts. Blackbeard was also hit deep into the ground in despair. Even if the D family resisted, facing Whitebeard's attacks, they couldn't bear it. The blood stained the ground, and his body stopped moving. Blackbeard, who disturbed the situation in the original book and might become Luffy's greatest enemy, was killed.